We're glad you could be here today to celebrate the ongoing progress of Bruin Learn and to hear more about what is to come with the transformation. My name is Lucy Avatisian. I am the Associate Vice Chancellor and CIO here at UCLA and one of the program owners for the LMS transformation. Next, we'll take a look at some general housekeeping items before getting into the agenda. Feel free to submit questions via the Q&A feature in Zoom. Questions will be answered live at the end of today's town hall. A copy of this presentation, as usual, and the recording of this town hall will also be available on the LMS Transformation website following the meeting. Today's agenda will include the following. We'll take a look at the program status and review key accomplishments, outcomes, and what to expect in the coming months. Next, we'll hear from Travis regarding accessibility within Bruin Learn and a new tool called Ally. Continuing with our discussion around new tools, we'll also hear from Michelle regarding library resources and Leganto. Following our introduction to Leganto, Chris and Greg will give us an overview of the digital resources in Bruin Learn. And then we will continue with a couple of Bruin Learn demonstrations of key and popular features by Augustine, Alan, Mark, and Alejandra. To wrap up today's town hall, we will be happy to answer any questions you have. Next, I will turn it over to Gabriel to discuss our program status.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucy, and good morning, everyone. We can go to the next slide. My name is Gabriel Shamoun, and I am one of the two project managers working in the LMS program office, supporting the LMS transformation. Good to see you all again. For those of you who have attended our previous town halls, this roadmap will look very familiar, and we've made a great deal of progress since the program started last January, and even since our last town hall. So we're currently winding down our spring hypercare exercises with the quarter being well underway and are currently gearing up to support our summer go live, which will include a summer pilot with our partners in health sciences schools, nursing, dentistry, public health, and the medical school program partners in the Mindful Awareness Research Center. We're looking forward to a successful transition for this pilot group as we prepare to welcome the remainder of our health sciences and School of Law partners during fall 22. Next slide, please. Thank you. So moving into some key accomplishments since our last town hall. First, spring quarter is now live, as everybody is fully aware, with over 2,500 courses and 37,000 students currently using the platform. Next, the team released a number of technical upgrades to the production environment, which have resolved course enrollment delays with near real-time student enrollments into published courses. Additionally, and as expected, the team successfully navigated the early term support spike, successfully resolving over 650 service tickets in the first 2 weeks of the term, with the vast majority of that tapering off as we've crossed over to these more recent weeks. Finally, with a focus on our Wave 2 stakeholder transition during summer and fall, the team initiated our updated engagement strategy through engagement at department meetings, regular academic unit lead engagements, and through the distribution of critical communications in preparation for the Wave 2 summer pilot and fall transitions. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what's next? First, we'll be continuing to focus on engaging with and preparing our Wave 2 partners for the summer pilot and for the larger transition during the fall. In parallel, we'll be working with EdTech tool vendors and our partners in security, privacy, accessibility, and purchasing to implement any of the outstanding EdTech tools ahead of fall 22. Additionally, we'll be working with CCOE Home and Social Sciences to ensure the appropriate sunset plans are in place and are communicated accordingly. And then finally, we'll be working with the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team to finalize the program rollout plans for later this year. Next slide, please. Thank you. The last thing I'd briefly like to cover is the high-level Wave 2 timeline as is shown here. Reiterating much of what I have already shared to the previous slides, a major focus for the team as we close out the project and the calendar year is going to be a focus on our Wave 2 partner academic units in the health sciences and the School of Law, as we host the summer pilot and the larger transition during the fall. Each of these chevrons that you see above in the timeline are correlated with all of the preparatory activities required for a successful transition during each of the quarters or terms as we engage and train faculty and eventually launch those courses. You can find this updated timeline in the About section of the LMS Transformation website if you'd ever like to reference it at any point in the future. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions via the Zoom Q&A feature. And I will pass the mic over to Travis Lee to walk us through the Ally tool. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gabriel. Hi, everyone. My name is Travis Lee. I'm the Disabilities and Computing Program Coordinator at UCLA. This pretty much means I oversee the campus for digital accessibility. And what do I mean by digital accessibility? Digital accessibility to me is a relationship between you as maybe a faculty or instructional designer or web developer. That person's job is to put content into the websites, onto the websites. On the other side, you have the end user. In this case, we have an end user with a disability. She most likely is blind. She often, these types of users oftentimes use screen readers or screen magnifiers. And your job is to remove the obstacles from allowing her technology from working. And in some cases in online education, that means giving this person, the end user, in our case, students with disabilities, more options to have more accessible formats for their files to download. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you today about, which is the Ally tool, which allows students and faculty more insight into accessibility of documents. I'm going to describe a little bit of that in a few moments. Next, please. So I do want to talk a little about digital accessibility from a very high level. A lot of people are not familiar with digital accessibility. A lot of people understand accessibility as you see wheelchair ramps and elevators and things of that nature, but digital accessibility is very similar. We're building the digital ramps into our websites, into our learning management systems. And here are some of the disabilities and the type of technology that they use. So as I mentioned earlier, for people who are blind or low vision, sometimes they'll use a screen reader, which actually reads the screen, reads the text on the screen and describes images to the end user. We have captions for the deaf and hard of hearing. I know that a lot of people who are not deaf and hard of hearing love captions. My wife, who's Korean, she introduced me to captions, and I can't even watch TV without captions now. So there's keyboard only navigation for dexterity. You may not think about this, but there's a lot of people who don't have total control of their hand, carpal tunnel, even might have an amputated hand, in which case we want to have the ability to navigate the website using keyboard only navigation. Screen magnifiers for the low vision. Screen magnifiers expand the screen up to like 300-400%. And that's really helpful to a lot of users, as most people who are blind are not completely blind. They have some vision, and screen magnifiers are really helpful to them. We have color contrast for the colorblind. We know about 1 in 7 males have some sort of color blindness. Clickable area, but for mobility impairment. So you want to make sure the buttons are big enough, or links are big enough. Flashing elements. I remember reviewing a website recently that had a looping video, and I explained to them that that's considered an accessibility fail because it could sometimes cause seizures. Cluttered pages. I know that oftentimes, sometimes even within the LMS, faculty or instructional designers will be working really, really fast, and they'll just want to put a lot of content on one page. It's ideally you want to chunk that material up. And sometimes really cluttered pages can cause anxiety or issues, or also issues for people with learning disabilities. Real text for people with dyslexia. So if you think about it, dyslexics and blind people don't have a lot in common from a disability standpoint, but what they need from an accessibility standpoint is very similar. They need real text. All of us have seen a PDF that you can't highlight, you can't do word search. You know that's an image only PDF, and that's a major accessibility issue. So those are some examples of disabilities and the technology they use. Next, please. So now I'll bring you to the Ally tool. The Ally tool is one of the ways in which we can address this issue of inequity in online education for students with disabilities. It's been very difficult for students with disabilities in-person courses and in online courses to have an even playing field for accessibility. And in this case, we are addressing accessibility through the lens of document accessibility, which is one of the big issues in online education, is making sure our documents are accessible. And the Ally tool is a way that students are able to download uploaded files to the LMS in a format that most aligns to what their learning needs are or what their disability requires. For example, you might have uploaded a PDF But the Ally tool will allow the student to download it as an e-braille, so they could use it in their braille display. It'll allow them to download as an MP3, for example, if for dyslexics, but also for students who are commuting in a car. So maybe you want to listen to your reading. So this is a great way to increase accessibility and bring alignment to universal design for learning within our learning management system. And so this is the Ally tool. I'm going to show you a few more screenshots. Next, please. Okay, so here's some of our vision statement. Basically, we want to be more inclusive. I remember talking to Jan Reif years ago, and we're like, what is our goal for our LMS? And one of the goals that we both shared was like, we want to make the most inclusive LMS possible for UCLA, so we could bring our students with disabilities up. So we have, that's our major vision statement, is to build an equitable LMS. Some of our near-term objectives is, gathering data to figure out where we are as a university in terms of document and LMS accessibility. We want to improve awareness of accessibility needs of students with disabilities, as well as faculty to make them aware of the accessibility and disability needs of their students. And we are currently in a very early phase of the process. I've been working with CAE as well as the LMS implementation team to make sure this rollout happens quickly, but also in a very reasonable way. And we're kind of doing measuring. So right now we're in the pilot phase of the project. We piloted it in winter, and we're piloting right now. So next, please. Okay, so as I mentioned, in winter quarter, we began the pilot. In about week 5, we got the tool into about 10 courses in the winter, mainly North Campus courses. We have partial data there. We introduced a lot of faculty to the tool, introduced students to the tool. I'm actually training the Center for Accessible Education on the tool next week. And right now we are in the phase 2, which is the spring pilot for 2022. We got, our goal was 20 courses. We got 17 courses enrolled, as well as multiple STEM courses. As I said, I'm working with CAE to try to address, try to get in front of the issues as well. So we have a lot of students who have this disability that requires alternate formats. So in the past, what a student would have to do is they would download their file, send it to CAE to get it remediated, and then the document comes back to you. We all know in the quarter system that goes really fast. So like this, let's say you have a document that you're supposed to be read on Monday, and it may be Wednesday or Thursday you get it back, but the midterm's coming up really quick on Friday. So we really want to reduce the time to access, right? So by putting the Ally tool in front of the students, that's the first attempt to remediate the document. So we're hoping that it will reduce the accommodations load at CAE, and we'll have our students with disabilities be able to access their documents at the same time as their non-disabled counterparts. And for summer long-term rollout, we're looking at a larger push to get the tool into more courses based on the data coming out of the spring quarter pilot. Okay, next. Okay, so just want to outline some of the benefits for the Ally tool for the students and for the faculty. So the ability to select the format most aligned to how they learned. I've been talking about that. There's a huge one is reducing the accommodations load at CAE, and accommodations that really happen when accessibility fails. We ideally want to have a universally designed learning management system so that students don't even need to go to CAE, or they only go to CAE for very specific things, not for everything. We increase inclusivity and support online education. Really interesting is that I've been talking closely with Berkeley, and they have had the tool for 3 years. And they said that it's actually international students who are using the tool more than anyone else, Chinese students specifically. So it's very interesting that the tools designed for people with disabilities is being really helpful to the non-disabled students as well as privacy to the students. A lot of students don't want to out themselves as disabled, and this is a way to do it, a way for them to download their files without bringing awareness to themselves. Okay, so benefit for faculty, increase awareness of accessibility, as well as remediate documents based on the Ally tool feedback. I'll show you that in a second. And no training is really required because this tool is already in the course. So next. So as you said, as you can see here, this is our pilot phase rollout plan, and we are in spring. So we have the 20 courses going right now. So next. As you can see in the spring pilot, we have North Campus as well as South Campus represented. South Campus is going to be a little bit more difficult in my mind because of the math equations. Next. So from the faculty perspective, they're able to see the document as well as the issues in the document. And if they have the original file, Ally will walk the faculty through how to remediate it, but they don't have to do this. It's an optional thing, but what's more important is the next slide. So go to the next slide. Is that the students are able to download their files in all these different formats. As I mentioned, tag PDF, HTML, EPUB, electronic braille, audio, Beeline Reader. These are the different file formats that they'll see automatically available in the LMS. They don't need to do anything. Right next to the file, there's a little download button, and they get these different file formats. So next. All right, so that's it from the Ally presentation. I'm really happy I had the opportunity to introduce you to the tool, and I'm excited for UCLA to move on to the next phase of the Ally implementation.
Hi, I think I'm next. Michelle Brosser. I'm the librarian for Urban Planning and Public Policy and Young Research Library. And I want to talk to you about a new tool that we have available in Bruin Learn. Can we go to the next slide, please? So the tool itself is called Leganto, and it's some of the same publishers. The product comes from some of the same tools that we use in the library. So it integrates really well with library resources and lets you add things directly from the catalog, linking directly to articles, books, all kinds of media. So, but when you use it in Bruin Learn, it's called course reading list because we assumed people wouldn't know what Leganto was. So we have a screenshot here on the slide. It's a little hard to read, but when you add course reading list to your Bruin Learn course, you initially see some welcome screens that kind of prompt you through creating a list of your own. But if you've previously used a service from the library called Course Reserves, we actually can help you import that list from our library resources right into this Leganto course reading list tool. And then once you get into the reading list, there are some links here in the blue bar. There's a chain link, and then it has links to a research guide that I think is also going to be added to the chat, and some tutorial videos. And so basically it's not just library resources, but now you have the opportunity to add YouTube videos or audiobook links and things like that. And there's a really helpful tool called the Cite It button that you can add to your browser. And even if you're not logged into Leganto or Bruin Learn, you can be adding items that you'd like to use for your course. Can we have the next slide, please? So on this slide, we have a list of some of the benefits of using Leganto in your course as from the point of view of the course instructor, but I also wanted to talk about why it's important from the point of view of the library. So in the past, we've seen things where course instructors are adding, say you go to the library's website and you download an article and then you just upload the PDF to your site. Well, that has some complications with, possible copyright issues. And then also the library doesn't get to see usage statistics for that article or database or whatever it is that you're adding the document itself. Whereas if you use Leganto and add these links to your site, we get to see how many students are accessing and reading these articles, and that can affect our budget. So it's really important for copyright and for usage statistics to use this tool. So another thing to keep in mind is that you as the instructor are able to see how many students interact with certain materials. So especially if you're assigning a lot of optional readings, students can like them, they can comment on them, they can mark them as completed when they've read them. And so it's kind of a little more interactive than other lists that we've had in the past. It doesn't replace our course reserve service. If you're unfamiliar, this is where if you had, a book that you wanted the students to go and pull from the stacks, we can actually pull it for you and keep it at one of our circulation desks. And then that way you can set a checkout period, say 2 hours at a time if they only need to look at a certain chapter, maybe make copies, things like that. It's a way for students to kind of share resources in course reserves. We also have the option if there's a print material, like an article from a print journal that you want us to scan, our course reserve staff help with that. So Leganto doesn't replace course reserves, but it does work more seamlessly with it. And it gives you the ability to then add other items to the list, not just from the library's resources. So it has a lot more customization potential. Like I said, we can add things from around the web as well. It integrates really well with the library system, which is Alma. And so there are options to add things directly from the library's website. Can we have the next slide, please? At this time, you have to manually add course reading list to your course if you want to use it. So we have a list here. Go to settings, the navigation tab, and you have to drag and drop course reading list into your navigation, and then make sure you click save. You don't necessarily have to remember all this. This is just to give you an idea. We're having an information session. The next one is May 12th at 3 p.m. So I think we're going to have a link to that in the chat as well. And we'd love for you to join us and see a quick demo of Leganto. But then also, if you've had a chance to maybe add it on your own and start playing around with it, we can answer any questions that you have. The library is really excited to be supporting this tool. We think it's going to really help with giving you, the instructor, a little more independence as far as adding things, but we're still here to help you. My contact information is there on the research guide. Please do send me an email if you have any questions. You don't have to wait for the 12th, but hopefully we'll see you in that session as well. Thanks for letting me share.
Hi, my name is Chris Gilman. I'm Digital Curriculum Program Coordinator in the Digital Library Program at the UCLA Library.
And hello, everyone. My name is Greg Steinke. I'm an instructional designer with the LMS Transformation Project.
Our presentation is called Pushing the Envelope in Bruin Learn. In using that expression, we hope to provide both inspirational and practical support for curricular innovation using the learning management system Bruin Learn. We're not talking rocket science here, but something more mundane, quotidian, and ephemeral. Next slide. We're literally advocating for envelopes, such as this item, a relic of an extortion scheme against Hollywood legend Mae West from the Los Angeles Times photographic collection. Next slide. The UCLA Library digital collection site is replete with such envelopes. A quick search in our system returns 146. So why are envelopes important? History has a way of stripping materiality from knowledge, like wheat from chaff. Over time, purified content becomes lofty and refined, losing taste and texture. Indeed, it can bind and breed intolerance. With programmatic collections such as the International Digital Ephemera Project, Modern Endangered Archives Program, Sinai Manuscripts Digital Library, UCLA is pushing the envelope in progressive global librarianship. Next slide. Meanwhile, new imaging technologies such as virtual reality are revealing the materialities of culture and communication in a manner never before possible. Cutting-edge MIT research centers on 16th century letter locking, a manual skill mastered by European royalty in life or death correspondence. Next slide. And libraries and other institutions of the so-called GLAM sector for galleries, libraries, archives, and museums are making their digital holdings available open access for teaching and research. Here's an envelope from Isaac Newton at the Cambridge University Digital Library, which contains a little sketch reflective of his thinking at an instant in time. Next slide. These high-resolution, high-value primary sources are interoperable following a standard of image delivery called IIIF for International Image Interoperability Framework. UCLA is a leader in IIIF, so its digital collections can be dragged and dropped for comparative detail analysis in a standalone viewer, such as Mirador here on the left, and scholars can study any strange entanglements between Newton's optical theory and Mae West's optics in the LA Noir Press. Next. A more holy juxtaposition of illuminations from the English Codex Amiatinus, dragged out from the Laurentian Medici Library in Florence via the World Digital Library, and the Armenian Gladzor Gospels from our own special collections and digital collections, can be made in a IIIF viewer. Here on the right, we highlight an innovative use of the Bruin Learn page with such a viewer embedded for interactive assignments. A page, discussion, or assignment in Bruin Learn has rich media affordances and is easily designed to provide robust, rigorous learning activities akin to a digital lab for in-class, hybrid, or remote instruction. Next slide, please.
Another innovation pushing the envelope as a delivery mechanism is the use of the Bruin Learn module as a package of curated content and learning activities designed in collaboration with outside parties, such as here, Russell Johnson from Library Special Collections and Monique Cornell with the Getty Research Institute as part of a current exhibit entitled Flesh and Bones, the Art of Anatomy. Next slide, please. And curated unit modules can be plugged in and customized in UCLA Bruin Learn course sites. Next
slide, please. For that purpose, we have developed a pilot 3-unit course template in Bruin Learn. Next slide. The 3-unit template is graphically and functionally organized to center a base course of topical readings, lectures, and discussions, while integrating a sequence of 3-unit modules organized by materials, methods, and products in that order. The unit modules help scaffold project work and provide ample instructional time and attention to sourcing, foundational scholarly practices, and tools for public scholarship or other student work products. Shifts in platform and formative assessment between units help ensure proficiency development for all students and transferability of concepts. Next slide, please.
Chris and I have worked closely with faculty in real pilot courses. Muriel McClendon in history, for example, has been instrumental in learning activity design using physical and digital library materials. And Chenling Liu Zilioni in history and the Institute for Society and Genetics has provided key insights and assistance for colleagues. Next slide, please. For the spring cohort, materials, tools, and learning activities in previous courses are repurposed, saving time and labor and building knowledge about what works and what doesn't. Topics and subject matters are wide-ranging and inclusive across disciplines. Next slide, please. Students so far have appreciated the structure of the 3-unit course design. There's some feedback there. And you can go to the next slide, some additional feedback. And they have given high marks for the learning experiences overall.
Next slide. We'd like to scale up and expand this emerging program from the existing core, cultivating teams and networks of participants, including faculty, librarians, curators, instructional designers, and technologists. We're refining the 3-unit template and revising live curriculum for modular sharing on the UCLA Canvas Commons. And we're exploring other modalities of information, such as 3D and data sets to support. Next slide, please. To that end, if you'd like to learn more about any aspect of this work or to get involved, we're open for business. Please contact Greg and/or myself at the emails on this slide, and we'll post them in chat. And we'd be happy to discuss ways to collaborate on your courses. Thank you, and we'll pass it along to the next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Augustine Rios. I am an instructional designer with the LMS transformation team. Next slide, please. Today, we're going to be talking about common questions and challenges that we have here and things that we've learned during our program here. I'm going to be covering where to find video and YouTube resources on top of where to find all of the things that we have currently been working on our team. And then Mark and Adam and Alejandra will talk about rubric features and 5 features you might not have known about in Bruin Learn. Next slide, please. All right, so Bruin Learn can be daunting. It can be very intimidating, but we've been working really hard to really help people learn how to use Bruin Learn. And the most important resource that we have at this time is the Bruin Learn resources page, which is highlighted there in the middle. The Bruin Learn resources page is a site that introduces faculty, TAs, and support staff to Bruin Learn to learn the features and functionalities. Bruin Learn has been created by myself and the rest of our team. You'll see that there are different sections in the page. In order to get to the page, it's always going to be on your left-hand global navigation page under the help section at the very bottom of the page if you happen to be logged in to Bruin Learn. And as you scroll down, if you do see the page, you'll see that there are lots of different ways that you can get help depending on your role in your Canvas site, in your Bruin Learn site, I should say. But the most important one that I'd like to point out is towards the bottom. If you scroll down the page, there is links to office hours, to live trainings, pre-recorded webinars. There's also a self-paced training site that you can learn. And there's also the link to our Bruin Learn YouTube channel, which is, once again, something that our team has been working really hard on. These videos have been custom created for things that we've been learning in Bruin Learn, specifically for UCLA. And so that site is also a very important site that we are still currently building. And I do have one call to action. If you do use the YouTube site, please go ahead and subscribe. Right now, the link that we're using is a standard YouTube link and looks very confusing. Once we hit 100 subscribers on YouTube, we can change the link name to Bruin Learn so that it can be a more concise link and a lot more easy to share out. The other thing I'd like to cover is the Instructure community. So Instructure is the name of the company that creates the Canvas software. The Instructure community has been live and asking questions for many years now. It's a huge resource that you can use if you have something that's very specific in mind, or something that, you know, maybe it's late at night and you're just Googling around looking for help. They can help you. We also have 24/7 support, tier 1 support, which is basic navigation, not super in-depth. If there is something that needs to be covered super in-depth, then that information would come to us as the LMS transformation group. And I believe that's it. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Mark at this point.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Kaiser, Instructional Design Manager on the LMS, but then also just plain old Instructional Designer in OTL. Quick question for Augustine. How many subscribers do we have right now on the YouTube channel? I don't have it open.
We have 30 subscribers.
Okay, so if the 46 people that are on this call right now subscribe, we're almost there. I feel like one of those like NPR, please, we need people to subscribe. But take a moment, if you will, please, to just subscribe to that channel so we can change the name to something more meaningful than UCQZV. See, I can't even say that if I want to tell people to go to our channel. So please take a moment to subscribe. Enough of that. I'm here to give you a brief overview of using rubrics in Bruin Learn. And so first I want to talk about maybe why you would use a rubric. So one of the reasons you would use a rubric is to communicate your expectations to your students. So if they can look at the rubric, because it will show up on the discussion, the quiz, the assignment, it'll show up for them, and they'll be able to see what are they going to be graded on, what are the levels, what are the expectations. So that's one reason to use a rubric. Another reason to use a rubric is you can have more consistency between students. So as you're grading your students, you will grade them on the same criteria in the same way. So that's between students. But then if you are also using TAs or multiple instructors, you can have more consistency between the different graders. So again, just if you're grading the students in the same way, then you'll end up with a more consistent grading output. Another thing about using rubrics in Bruin Learn is they are shareable and reusable. And so once you have created the object in Bruin Learn, you can attach it to multiple assignments, discussions, quizzes. So for example, one common use is you will come up with a discussion rubric, and then you can attach it to every single discussion. So you can reuse it. If you are also teaching with other co-instructors, or again, TAs are a great example, you can pass it between each other, between course sites, and you don't have to recreate the rubric each time. So that's another cool feature of rubrics. I mentioned here it travels with the course site. So if you copy the course, you will end up having that rubric with you. You won't have to recreate it. And then this is the last one to sort of tag me into creating the rubric is I think they're relatively easy to create and easy to use, which brings me to my right hand side of the slide, which is creating a rubric. And it's as simple as there's a plus sign that says plus rubric. If you click plus rubric, this little window that you're seeing here where it says rubric title and criteria and so on. That will pop up. You fill it in, hit the button create rubric, and it's saved. You can also go to, there's a sub menu called rubrics, and if you go there, you can also add rubrics. So I say this all the time, as with many things in Canvas Bruin Learn, there's more than one way to do it, and it doesn't mean that one is right or wrong. They just try to put it as close as possible to where you'd actually use it. So if you write in the assignment, you can hit plus rubric, or you could go and create all your rubrics in the rubric category. You should give it a good title. This one says essay rubric. That's not the best title. That's a good title though. If you give it something that's more meaningful to your use, then you'll be able to find it in that rubric menu, like I mentioned. So if you just call it rubric, then you're not going to be able to find it to share it with other people. So giving it a good title is important. Next slide, please. And so once you have created the rubric, this is a screenshot, it's very tiny, sorry, of what it looks like when you go to SpeedGrader and you go to grade. And so in the SpeedGrader window, you'll see the entire rubric. And I've already clicked in on some levels so you can see what it looks like. So for example, in the first line, I gave them exemplary, and you can see that it gave them all the points for that. And then in the next criteria, I gave them developing, and it automatically fills in the points in that right-hand column for you, and all going down there. And so it's as simple as just clicking. You don't have to type, and it's again, relatively easy to use. If you look, there's also like a little comment icon. If you click that, you can write whatever you like as a justification for why they got that particular points. And depending on how you built the rubric, you can also use ranges. So you don't have to be stuck with a single point. You can give between 30 and 25, and then that allows you to even refine your grading more if that is suitable for your particular assignment. So once you've clicked everything in there and you want to add comments, you can. You hit save, and it automatically tallies it all up and posts it to the student. You don't have to do any extra math or worry about that aspect of it. So that's really all I have to say about rubrics. I'll watch the Q&A if people have questions for me about rubrics. Otherwise, I'm going to pass this over to Alan and Alejandro. They're going to tell you about a really cool project that the GTLA has been working on. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. My name is Alan Roper. I'm Teaching and Learning Specialist Manager for the LMS Transformation Project, and I'm here to introduce the 5 features in Bruin Learn you might not have known. This has been created by the Graduate Teaching and Learning Assistant team, the GTLAs, and I'm just here to kind of explain why we want to look at GTLA created content. The GTLAs provide a unique perspective for the LMS transformation team. They've participated in faculty support, office hours, ServiceNow tickets. They've worked with instructional designers on developing full-featured courses, but additionally, they are also students, and they have worked as TAs as well. So they've got this rich experience that we want to draw from and leverage. So the GTLAs have developed materials which can be used for TA or instructor support, just-in-time help, and live training. So right now, I am very happy to introduce Alejandra Campoy, GTLA and PhD student in comparative literature. Alejandra?
Thank you, Alan. So our goal with creating this training was to provide sort of a quick and easy tip sheet for instructors and TAs that highlight some of the features in Bruin Learn that we think are particularly helpful and useful. So the first is the do-over. This part of the training explains how to restore content that you may have accidentally deleted. And it also explains how to use the page history feature to go back to previous versions of a page if you change your mind about some of the edits that you've made and would like to go back. So, you don't have to panic. There are ways to restore things that you've accidentally lost. The second option is, the second tip, I should say, is how to display an embedded PDF. And this will be particularly helpful for instructors that like to use their course site to share a lot of documents or share a lot of course readings. This will let students to view or preview the full document from the site rather than having to, download or click on the link before viewing it. The third option, I think, is very helpful. It provides, a setup. It explains what are your options for customizing what it is that students see when they first click on your course site, and also anytime that they click home from the course navigation. So I think that this is a particularly helpful tool that allows instructors to customize their Bruin Learn site to complement their teaching style or their teaching preferences. The fourth tip is how to view course analytics. This is very helpful for gauging student participation, and it provides graphs and tables that visually presents that type of data. And lastly, the calendar signups tool is very helpful to schedule office hours appointments, and it can also be helpful for students that are working on group projects. So in order to view the full document, the link is provided on the slide here, and it'll also be shared via the Bruin Learn resources site. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Lots of content in this town hall. I'm Jeff Burke, the other program owner, and we have some time now for open Q&A. There have been several questions that were answered by the speakers in the Q&A section, but we have time now for questions either on things that were presented or just you'd like to know about in the Bruin Learn, either about Bruin Learn or the LMS transformation project. So we'll wait for a second here just to let people either enter their questions. Any for the speakers while we're waiting for other questions, are there any of the Q&A questions that you want to talk about verbally?
All right. There's nothing in the Q&A for me, but we just jumped from 30 to 40 subscribers. So thank you so much to the people who are subscribing.
Maybe we need Mark to run a sort of telethon each.
Yeah, a subscriber telethon.
I'll moonlight at NPR. I'll get in there. And yeah, Chris, you should talk a bit about those questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to clarify, Greg and I are just getting used to the town hall and the pace of questions and so forth. So the 3-unit template that we showcased is an alternative to the standard 10 module template, and to that extent, it would be installed in a course site, and then we would work probably pretty closely with you to develop learning activities and to provide all the right linkages and so forth to ensure that the students can navigate the site, particularly since it might be different from what they're used to in some of their other courses. So it's a pilot at this point. Our hope is that after a lot of trial usage, we will be able to provide it for standard use for download, but probably would need to work with us directly to implement. In terms of timing, it's quite easy to put it into your course site, but for the holistic course design, you might want to think about it either on the scale and scope of integrating a substantial digital assignment in a course, or redesigning a course from the ground up. That said, there are components to this type of course that don't require the 3-unit template to be used, and we have actively been creating standalone learning activities that can easily be put into a course in the existing standard or simplified templates.
Thanks, Chris. So the next question is, can you speak more to the CCLE sunset timeline and plans? So last Friday, there was an email that went out to the academic unit leads for each unit that had some more details. The highlights of it essentially are that when spring quarter ends, so probably by June 30th of this year, there won't be an opportunity to create additional courses if you're in a wave 1 school. So the schools that have gone, or units that have gone through the transition already on either CCLE or social sciences Moodle. So there will still be some CCLE courses that are available for wave 2 faculty because they start all in the fall of 2022. But by the time summer sessions have ended, I think September 9th, 2022, then there won't be the ability for wave 2 or really any faculty to have courses in CCLE at that point, or the non-curricular collaboration site non-curricular collaboration sites either. And so then at some point in the fall, the CCLE servers will be moved to a non-public state where they'll be maintained for a little bit longer, but not available to the public or available to the campus community. And then at some point they'll be taken fully offline. And so there's some steps that'll happen in between. So the archival of material that's in CCLE. So both the course material itself, kind of the core course material rather than the formatting, will be archived along with student data up to the retention limits and requirements of the university's policies. And so one sort of note, if you're looking at or interested, or you have faculty that are interested in course material where the formatting, even as courses are migrated over to Bruin Learn, there's some formatting preserved. If that's important, then we would recommend including those CCLE courses in an upcoming migration pass. And in the archival solution for the CCLE courses, will essentially just keep the course material without formatting. So that may have been a little bit more involved of an answer than you were looking for. And there's actually, many details for that sunset and decommissioning process that I'm happy to go through either in an office hour or separate presentation. But it's something that we've been in communication with the academic unit leads about so far. So happy to go into more details if it'd be helpful. We'll wait a couple more minutes to see if any questions come in. All right, I see some folks starting to drop off and we haven't gotten any new questions. So I think with that, we'll wrap up the town hall and look forward to seeing you in office hours or training sessions or in the next town hall. Thanks very much, everyone. And thanks to the speakers too. Great material that was presented. We really appreciate you taking the time to share what you've been working on. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone.